Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome to our fireside chat. We're back with another episode. And today, as a springing off starting point, I was interested in the idea of seeing if it's possible to have a conversation with someone for a set period of time. It could be 30 seconds, a minute, a couple minutes, where you tell a story of your future. Maybe something you haven't experienced in physical form yet, but you've imagined in your mind as a daydream or as a night dream or as a dream like a million times, that you could actually describe it. And it feels blissful, obviously, as we recognize emotions or how we create our reality. What do you think about that idea?
I think that sounds super fun. And what's the point of doing it? Why would somebody want to do this?
As a tool for focus, and actually this is another great topic to bring in that I was sitting with a lot most recently, is the recognition that focus, or the placement of awareness, intention, there's a lot of different names for it, but basically whatever you're putting all your attention on is basically the only superpower we have. If you consider the idea that physical reality is a result of intention or focus, then the physical reality and playout's almost irrelevant. It's really the focus as the seed which creates the reality to sprout into the experience.
Yes, I love that. And I've played with future gratitude. So setting a date and a time, even if you want to do it, all right, it's today, it's 5 p.m. and I'm so grateful that I created this or I experienced this. And so you can do that with any period of time. And what exactly are you proposing? We play with what?
We play with just totally tossing a story out for the purpose of the excitement of the emotion. In almost like, it's just like you're saying, it might be the end of the day and we're looking back on something that happened today or like last week. If there's only, going back to what we talked about in a previous episode, if there's only now, and every now contains the idea of a memory in it, then you're simply like choosing a new now by choosing a new memory.
Love that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to jump like you do. I was listening to Bashar today, and he was saying in our existence, they no longer have memory.
Yes.
They don't need it. They don't need memory. And that reminds me, we talked about this last week, but the concept in A Course in Miracles in being empty-headed, where you're just being informed by spirit, by source in every moment. So you're able to be 100% present right now without the past dictating what you choose or what you're responding to or what your preferences are even. I find that fascinating.
And as coincidence would have it, I was listening to that same Bashar episode in the last day or two, where he was saying, where people are like, how do you remember what you need to? And he goes, we don't. We simply trust that we know what we need to know in the moment we need to know it. And there's really nothing else to it. And if you consider if the actual laws of physics are every now contains a new memory, then the surrender to that idea would actually allow for a greater or more robust experience. And it also, I think we were talking about that before, the idea of the Course in Miracles forgiveness term being most likened to forgetting. Can you approach every second as if it's the first time you're meeting someone or interacting with something? Because if we're the creator and we're swimming in pure love and it's just reflecting what we're putting out, if we're saying, oh, this person was mean to us last time, the pure love around us goes, no problem, here they are mean again. But it objectively doesn't care whether we say this person is loving or this person is hating. It simply gives us whatever we say it is or say they are, because they exist in every possible gradation of self.
I love that so much. And one thing that I was thinking about is when I have interactions with people, either on coaching calls or with friends, and I'll notice sometimes I'll have an opinion or something will rise up in me. And for me, it's like, it might be a judgment. It might be like, oh, I know what this is, like a labeling of the thing. When that happens, if I catch it right away, and sometimes I don't, sometimes it takes a few seconds, or I'll notice my physiology changing and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. I have some physiology going on that means that I'm having a reaction. If I can drop in, and I often do this in the moment, and just recenter myself, and I'll say a prayer. I just say, get me out of the way and speak through me. And in that moment, I become 100% present, 100% empty-headed. And what follows is never me. It's not human. It is divine guidance, and it's exactly what that person needed to hear. And my response to it is completely unattached to whether they think it's brilliant or they're calling me names. I'm like completely, my physiology is neutral.
Yeah.
It's open and calm. And that's what it reminds me of. It's like if I don't have any memory of a past, if I don't have any need to be validated, if I don't need to prove myself, if I don't need a reflection back or any validation, then I am present. And it's so beautiful when that happens. And the more I practice it, of course, the more it happens.
I love that so much.
And when I don't practice it, I'm like, it's so foreign to me. I'm like, ew.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's easy to catch.
And it's a real life example. Bashar always says, you can't have an emotion without a belief. And a belief is basically, at its root, a thought. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking, as Abraham uses that phrase, which I love. So it follows, if you can release all thoughts in a circumstance, you don't necessarily have an emotional overlay because you're not like imbuing a meaning onto it. You're just allowing, and it affords the opportunity for maybe new things to occur that never occurred before because you're not placing a definition. I love the idea in the Course in Miracles that you're not actually interacting with reality. You're interacting with your belief system layered on top of reality. You may objectively see like a car moving down the street, but because it's your ex-wife's car or it's the same type or whatever, you like imbue a meaning onto it. And as a result, you get the emotion back. Oh, I remember my ex-wife had that car. And all of a sudden you drop into that emotional state of being, which is everything. So it's really cool to see the trigger, open awareness to release the thought, to not place a meaning on it, and then see what potentially transpires from there.
Yes, I love that. And it's so important when you talk about the meaning we place on things, that can lead to suffering, it can lead to enjoyment, it can lead to love. And it's up to you. Like, what meaning are you giving it? And in every moment, we're free to choose again. So if you don't like what you have, if you don't like the meaning you're giving to it, something, and what it's reflecting back to you, then choose again. Like, who cares? You can't do it wrong. You have an infinite number of redos.
Beautiful. Sometimes the hesitancy in that is the concern for how other people might receive it. You choose whatever, something happened, say a car accident, and you say, I want to maintain my vibration, and you're in a smiling, happy state because the day was going wonderful, and then someone approaches you, hey, you hit my car. You're at a decision point where you say, do I continue to smile and maintain this vibe, or do I match what someone's throwing out or offering as a vibration for me? And that's where I see the true point of power and the rubber meeting the road. And actually, we were just discussing this before the show, and I'd love to delve into the idea of other people's perspective on stuff. Because when we were discussing the idea of actually playing out a scenario for a minute where we discuss a beautiful future happening to us, there's an element of fear that comes in how an audience might receive that. And then it becomes the point of power. Do we simply speak our truth because it's our truth, or do we let the fear of how someone might receive my truth dictate whether I toss that truth out? What do you think of that?
I think it's fascinating that you perceived what I said as fear.
Ooh, yes.
So let's dive into that
let's
first.
dive into that.
Because where I was coming from is I didn't think it was fear. It could be. Mine was concern, okay, why would people want to listen to this? What's in it for them? How can they apply it in their lives? Why the fuck does it matter? Because some people will talk and I'll listen. I'm like, why are you telling me that? I don't give a shit. It doesn't relate to me. So for me, in order to do that scenario, I believe it's important to have context. This is why we're doing it. This is how it can apply to you. This is how you can use it to create whatever you want in your life. So that's where I was coming from, as opposed to like, oh, I'm afraid people won't receive it or they won't understand it, because I believe everything's understandable by everybody.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah, I do see that perspective. Yes. And we can delve into that. I think my intention was so I love to feed off other people's emotions, the emotions I prefer. When people are putting out a happy vibe, I realize, oh, they're offering me a gift, I can match it. Even if I'm not necessarily involved in the scenario, I can see like two strangers in an airport like hugging because they're reuniting, and I can feel the vibe both of them are putting out, and I will focus on it because I recognize I want to match that vibration and feel it. So my intention with the exercise of recalling a memory of something that I haven't physically experienced yet, but have emotionally in my imagination several times, is to offer that vibration because other people could potentially match it, and then realize we all uplift each other by picking our highest vibration and offering that to the world, not in requirement you have to match my vibration, but just in recognition, this is the vibration I'm choosing to put out because it feels best.
Yes. All right.
Yeah?
I love it. Let's play.
All right. You want me to go first?
Sure. And I don't know how you want to do it. We'll just, roll with it as we always do.
Yes.
I would love at some point for you to talk about your 68-second scripts, because I think that plays into this perfectly.
Yes. That's exactly it.
So before or after,
yes,
you choose.
Okay. Yeah, I'll toss it out now. It's interesting you're mentioning that. So yeah, that's really my core intention behind another channel I created, 68-second scripts.
Stripping.
Which would actually be great for raising vibration too. I mean, my personal vibration of what I prefer, but everyone does their own thing. But Abraham Hicks talks about the idea that if you focus on something for 17 seconds, you start to get a momentum going, which law of attraction will respond to and give you another matching in vibration thought. So this is where people get momentum going in ways they don't prefer. So it's recognizing the timeline and then starting a momentum in a direction you do prefer. And then the idea is after you've put, what would it be, I guess 5 or 6 17-second periods together, and you hit the 68-second mark, now you have enough thought momentum or focus momentum going where you're supposed to get some degree of reflection back from 3D reality confirming the idea. And it can be as simple as an experiment they recommend, focusing on a bright sweater maybe, for example, which we haven't really highlighted how we're highlighters today, but I am loving our color scheme. Anyway, so you could focus on bright orange for 68 seconds without allowing thoughts of this is nonsense or wandering onto other things. But if you can get 68 seconds of pure thought, in the immediate future, there's supposed to be some reflection of that color, which would be a cool exercise that I've played before. So
love it.
Yes, so that's basically the idea of 68-second scripts, is when you recognize your emotional state of being is not where you want it to be, you can flip for 68 seconds to a video of someone, me, or maybe we'll have guests on, just speaking a beautiful, or what I consider to be a beautiful experience. Driving a brand new car, petting a puppy, lying on the grass on a sunny day, cashing a $100 million check, you name it, all these ideas that come to me in my imagination, and you can choose to match the vibration that I'm feeling excited to put out.
Awesome.
So yeah.
I love that.
Appreciate it. So like I'll hop in first and we'll see how long it goes. But like one scenario, I'm gonna close my eyes because it's so much easier to conjure, is like a constant daydream I get is standing out front of Bank of America and I'm holding a check for $120 million. And I can like feel the appreciation, the excitement, the exhilaration of standing there and feeling the piece of paper and looking at all the zeros, a 12 followed by 7 zeros, and then the decimal and the 2 cents after that, and then reading $120 million even across it and realizing in the next couple minutes, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna have this in my bank account. And there's very few things in life that I wouldn't be able to have access to. I can fly anywhere I want, I can eat anything I want, I can live anywhere I want, I can buy anything I want. There's just absolutely no limitation. So I feel myself opening the door and walking in, and there's one of those greeters that you frequently get at Bank America, and she looks at a smile and she's like, how can we help you today? And I like feel the energy of excitement in me, and I say, oh, I'd like to deposit a check. And she kind of points behind me and says, oh, there's an ATM machine. You can deposit the check there. And this like wave of humor and excitement comes over me because I realize I don't think the ATM machine is going to know what to do with a $120 million check. So I like laugh back at her and I'm like, I think the amount of this check is going to require me to like go to a teller. So she's like, all right, do your thing. So, and kind of gives me like a smirk, like curious and wondering what I have. And again, it like feeds me up more. And then the exhilaration of like walking up to the teller and sliding the check under and saying, I'd like to deposit this check. And in my like visualization, she like looks down at the check and then like looks up at me and looks down at the check again and just is like, and I'm like, yeah, it's a real check. And then she goes, I'm gonna have to get a manager. And I go, yeah, I'd imagine you would need to get a manager for this. So the manager comes back and he kind of does the same thing. And like, I can see the scenario and just feed off the emotions of them in their disbelief that there's literally a check for this amount in front of them. And the manager kind of does the up down and looks back at me and he's like, is this check real? And I know it is. It's for an investment I made and it was just a hit of intuition, told me to invest in something I did and it resulted in this check. And then the feeling of just walking out after it's been deposited, and even if they say it's going to be 3 or 5 days before this clears, I've heard several people tell that story. Like imagine you just deposited a huge sum of money and they tell you it's going to be 5 days till it clears, but you know it's valid, you know it's coming into your account, and how would you live those 5 days? And I'm like feeling the shivers now, which is always my indication to myself that I'm like on track. And like, how are you going to live knowing there's $120 million about to hit your bank account in 5 days? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that
I
scenario.
love it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I appreciate
And
it.
how do you feel now?
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, Karen, wonderful question. And self-reflection, yes. I feel my whole state of being in a different place right now than it was even when we started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that give you that you don't have access to now?
Can you rephrase the question?
Like, what does $120 million in your bank account give you?
It gives me the feeling, which is another idea I was sitting with a lot this week. The realization that life and the human experience is nothing more than an emotional experience. If everything is an objectively neutral prop, the people, the circumstances, the items, we're just going emotion to emotion to emotion. And telling this story like gives me the state of being, of exhilaration, of unlimited potential, of unlimited accessibility to everything I want. It's removing all the idea of limitations. And it probably feels so good because the truth is we're unlimited gods, essentially. There's nothing we can't be or do or have. So it gives that vibration of unlimited, which is truth. And actually, sometimes when I tell these stories, this is fun too. I don't know if you can see, I get like little like tears in the corner of my eye. Mm-hmm. And I love Bashar where he recognizes crying as one of the like vehicles or physical representations of an emotional change in state. And it's why a lot of times people can have tears of sadness because they're changing emotional states from higher to lower, or tears of joy when they're changing from lower to higher, because a significant change in emotional state in a short period of time usually results in some physical representation, and tears are easiest.
Yes, love it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Thank you.
So fun.
Do you have like one that comes to mind that you'd love to like walk through?
Well, I have one that I play a lot.
Yes.
I have one that I play a lot. So I'm on this terrace overlooking the Mediterranean Sea.
Yes.
And I'm just out there and it's so calm and there's not another person around and I can just see the sea and I can feel the peace and the tranquility. I can feel the sun on my face and I'm breathing in the air. And then my love brings me out a cappuccino and sets it down and puts his arms around me and I just like melt in. And it's like that feeling like every single thing up until this moment has led me to this. And so there's like this business component, like my business is thriving and I am creating like millions of dollars of revenue. And then I go to like us, like my partner and I at these amazing gigs where we're on stage and I'm speaking to people and they are really recognizing the truth of who they are. They're getting it and they are crying and they are like, their hearts are open and they're expansive and they're like anchoring that state into their bodies where they just know they cannot go back. They can't go back to the old selves. They don't fit anymore. And there are a lot of components to it, but this feeling of expansion and love and peace and abundance and success and impact, it's all there. And then there's one, then I'm on stage at this event with my business coach, and he has this contest. It's called Breakthrough of the Year Contest. And this one makes me cry.
Yes. Change the state.
Yeah, because I struggled for such a long time. And last year when I went to this event, I had less than $1,000 in my bank account. And I went on faith, like I just know this is gonna open something up for me. And when they put the incidentals on my credit card, which was maxed, I just held my breath and was in a state of complete like, oh shit, please go through, please go through. And it did. And everything shifted. In the next 12 days, I created 100%, like exactly what I created in the entire year. I created that much money in 12 days. Like just, I shifted my state. I got into alignment. So the next memory, it's a future memory, is me on that stage. And there are 6 people. We all gave our speech to the crowd, and they're announcing the winner, and they have this giant check for $20,000 for the winner, and it's me. And I just fall down. I fall down because for so long I didn't believe it could be me. For so long, I'm like, it could be okay for anybody else. Anybody else can do this, I cannot. And I fucking did it. I fucking did it.
Yeah.
And I am just like so proud and so happy, and I can taste it. Like I know it's happening. It's done. You can feel it, right? Like you know it's happening.
Yes.
Yeah, so I play with that a lot.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love your statement, you know it's happening. And I do too. And several people helped me to see that. Dr. Joe through quantum physics, Neville, or I think he pronounces it Neville when you hear him talking, Neville Goddard. The idea that if you can imagine it, it's because it exists as a potential in the quantum. And just like the present moment exists, there's truly no difference. If you can like envision it, it's because it already exists and already is. And yes.
Totally.
Wow, that's
yeah.
so powerful.
It is so powerful. And if you're not playing with this, start playing with it. Like set a date. Like I say, it's December 31st, 2024. And holy shit, this has been the best year of my life. I mean, this is how I start. And then after each sentence, this is one way for me, it really grounds it. So it's not this concept and it doesn't seem outside of me, is after every sentence, I pause, I close my eyes, and I take a slow, deep belly breath. And it gets in my body. I embody that truth. And at the same time, I'm playing my walk-on song. Like my walk-on stage song, it's playing in the background. So I'm like, I have all this stuff going on. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm unstoppable. You got it, Sia. Like it's playing.
Yes.
I'm reading my thing out loud. I pause, I breathe. It's in my body. And talk about raising my vibration. Like I am unstoppable.
Yes.
It's in there. It's like, it's so brilliant. And since we're on this, I'm just going to go to one more topic, which is breath. If you think about like what your limiting beliefs are, or the stories that you tell yourself. One exercise that we did in my business coaching program, my business coach is amazing and he's a shaman. And, well, he's not a shaman, he has a shaman, but he's super spiritual. He had us write down like, okay, what are all your disappointments, losses, failures from the year of 2023? And then what meaning did you make up about it? We talked about meaning.
Yes.
So that you can clear it, and then breathe that into our bellies. And just that one little exercise, like breathing it, then you read it again, you're like, it's like gone. Like the charge from it was gone. So you have a clean slate. So if you're bringing stuff with you, do the work. Like, okay, what am I making it mean? And then breathe it. Try the breath. Like breathe slow and deep into your belly, because it's in your cells, but it's not who you are. Who you are is so much bigger than that. Like anything, like you said, anything you can dream, it's already there. It's a possibility you can tune into. The creator the creation of the universe is kind. It wouldn't be in you if it weren't possible for you.
That's beautiful. I love the breathing idea too. At first, when I started doing the work, I'd be like, oh, just change the thought. And I try to do it in like a hurried manner. And I realize it needs real intentionality. You're fooling yourself if you're trying to like gloss over and be like, I'm sure it's possible. All truths are true. And I choose that as my future self to be able to make a shift in 1 second just with thought. But as the expansion occurs, taking the moment to sit with it and like breathe it in and like feel it in the body. I love Dr. Joe's analogy that the emotions are the language of the body, because he goes through the process of showing how the thought literally releases the chemicals into your bloodstream, which then give you the corresponding sensations to the thought. And I love when he talks about the loop you can get into, because you think it, then you feel it, and then the feeling influences the mind again to think it. And actually, it's maybe a very much a parallel to Abraham's 17 seconds of focus. If you spend 17 seconds thinking, you get the chemicals, and then they come back again. And if you don't change the focus because you don't prefer it, or lean into it because you do prefer it, it starts like the feedback loop, which will just go. So catching it early is critical. But when you're focused in how you prefer, sitting in it to get those emotions, get the chemicals, have them come back, give you the new thought, lean into it again. Like if you're not investing the time, I love the 68-second idea when I come up with that, to like sit in it in my body and breathe it in for 68 seconds.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes.
Oh, that's so juicy. I
Yes.
love it.
And one other thought that came up, I love like our zigzag ability, because it's just like, it reminds me of the improv class we're taking now, where we play a game where someone throws out a word and then the next person throws out a word related to it, and the two people look at each other and try and like guess a new third word simultaneously.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we're almost doing that. Like we're leapfrogging off each other and then coming back together and finding a match. But I'm curious your perspective. What's the difference between a memory of the past and a thought or vision or imagination of the future? Do you see any like distinction or difference between the two?
The difference? Well, I call them future memories because I'm creating them. And as a creator, I want to choose, right? Like, and I get to choose. I have the power to choose what my future looks like. Like Dr. Joe says, the best way to predict your future is to create it.
Yes.
Like, so the past memories, they're not true. And it's scientifically proven that the more times you tell a story, the better it gets and the further from reality it gets, whatever reality was, which is so subjective. You ask 100 people that witnessed the same thing, they all have a different account. So past memories they're fiction. They really are. And you can heal anything in the past by changing your perspective. And there's lots of ways to do that. We talked a little bit about it in the last episode.
Yes.
You know, like what did it lead you to? What did that particular event that you may be labeling as unpreferred, what did it lead to in you that never would have occurred? Like you never would have become the person you are today without that event. So I don't know. Past memories, they can be fun if you choose for them to be.
Yes.
Like sometimes things that were so embarrassing are my funniest stories.
You want to share any of those?
Sure, I do.
Oh.
I love my embarrassing stories. So I grew up in Michigan, and my first job out of college, I was in sales, and I used to have this driving shoe. Like when I had heels on, I would put on this flat brown shoe, and so I wouldn't scuff the back of my heel. And I had lunch with a client, a potential client, from this company, the German company that is the size of Chrysler. So it's massive, and this is the vice president. And I walk in, and he's telling me like how smart I am, like throughout the lunch, and wow, you're awfully smart for being so young and all these things. And I had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and when I went to the bathroom, I'm like, oh. I had one like a white or cream colored heel and one flat brown shoe. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I have to walk back to the table? Yes, you're so smart. So anyways, I did. And then he walked me out to the car and I'm like, I was mortified. I'm like, I was so embarrassed and it was hilarious.
And then you reframed it as owning it, that you were a leader in style, and the new style trend you were establishing for the world was mismatching shoes.
I don't know. I don't know what I did, but I laughed so hard. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was hilarious.
It sounds literally like a dream. Like when you wake up in your underwear in school and you're like, I didn't do my homework, I'm in my underwear.
And my friends were like, how could you walk in one heel and one flat? And I'm like, my legs, there must be different lengths. I don't know.
That's awesome.
How about you?
It triggers an interesting idea too, which comes back. I love that you're reframing and finding humor in past. Another idea that comes to mind, or came to mind in meditation the other day, was the idea, sometimes when we're like describing where we want to go, we look back to where we were for a period of time. And I had this almost realization, like every second's a new second, which is always my reset. But every second, let's say it contains 100% fuel in the tank. When I look back to say, like, I used to have not enough, but now I have a ton or whatever, I almost like got this vision, like I'm burning 20% of my fuel looking back. Then I make a U-turn, burn another 20% to get back to the same neutral point I was. And then I only have 60% to apply and focus towards the future, given this overall theme that like focus is our superpower. And Abraham a lot of times uses this line when people come in and they frame the context of where they were to where they're going. And she goes, thanks for bringing us down to speed. Because
Yes.
in that idea, you're like lowering the vibration by looking back, when you could actually use your like present point or even your future point as your back point and then like leapfrog further. I realize it's like almost like a leapfrog or like quantum leap maybe idea comes into mind. Whatever you like establish as your lowest point is your baseline, and then you're like burning fuel like a rocket to launch off whatever you set as your lowest point. So catching sometimes when my mind wants to go back and I'm like, can I really find humor and extrapolate something from this past scenario? Or can I simply go back to that thoughtless, mindless state like you were talking about before? Let's take a second and go to thoughtless, mindless, and then jump off from this with 100% fuel instead of like looking back. So yes.
That reminds me, okay, so I had this yoga instructor, and at the end of every class we do Savasana, which is, dead body pose, you just relax and rest. And she would say, remember the most relaxed you've ever been and be that now. So why not remember the highest vibration you've ever been and start there?
Yes.
It's just remembering. You already know how to do it.
Yes.
And I believe in anchoring things. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with neuro-linguistic programming or NLP.
I'm not.
But they do anchors. Okay, so there's a visual anchor. So you might have a symbol. Okay, what's the symbol of me as infinite potential? Maybe it's the infinity sign, whatever. So that's a visual representation. And then you have an auditory, like I'm unlimited, or I'm unstoppable, or I'm all that is. So there's just an auditory cue, and you'd say that in your head. And then there's also a physical anchor. So you're doing visual, kinesthetic, which is touching, and auditory. So kinesthetic could be, I don't know, it could be anything. It's any point that you touch on your body to remind you of a state that you want to go to immediately. So every time you're in an elevated state, you anchor it. You're like, okay, I see the infinity sign, I'm unlimited, and you're like, okay, here's my thing. Or I don't know, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And
wow,
then
I love that idea.
You do it enough times when you're in that elevated state. When you're not, all you do is those three things, and boom, you're right there.
Yeah. Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. What's coming to mind is in a lot of the Dr. Joe meditations with the breath, when I know it's coming, my body does like a shaky thing in the breath, and he'll just like start the music track, and I'll know we're going to do the breath, and my body, like before I even start doing the breath, starts to, and it's almost like Pavlov's dog, right? I condition my body when I set intention or this music starts associated with the breath track, my body's like starting to respond. But I love that idea. one other idea that I had the other day in watching, I think it's called, I want to say cytokinetics, but it's not. It's the visual vibrational representation of music or other vibrations. And in the retreats, Dr. Joe shows like a stethoscope recording of a heart, but it's visualized in actual like analog patterns. I think they use a speaker. It's not like a computer interpreting it. It's like speaker wires going into a speaker with, I think, some type of liquid or medium on top. And you watch when the heart goes into coherence, the most beautiful pattern that looks like a snowflake emerges. And I was sitting with this idea yesterday, if I could capture a visual representation of my heart in coherence and then use that just exactly as you're describing, when I realize, oh, I'm not in the state I prefer, whip it out as a representation. And it's exactly that. So I'm gonna have to look into this and play with this more.
Ooh.
And it's, again, going back like full circle to that representation. My like focus, my intention, my placement of awareness is my superpower, and it's really all I have in any given moment. That's like all I'm basically working with. What am I focusing on and how am I focusing on it? The rest is just details.
Yes. And that's why I love anchors, because they're very, very practical. And you're already in those states, those high elevation or the high frequency states a lot.
Yeah.
So when you're in them, why not use it to your advantage? So you're not burning that 40%. You like, okay, I'm not in it. Where do I want to go? Oh, I know how to do this. It's that memory.
Yes.
You've created it in your body. You've anchored it in. And you start from there.
That's so beautiful.
So it's like you're already so far ahead of the game.
Yeah, and it's so Dr. Joe too, who I love, where he says I'm probably not using the exact words, you could do it better. You condition the body to know how to embody a state better than the mind. You just keep practicing, like you're saying, every time you're in the state, keep setting that as your anchor point, and then
That's your new
it knows
baseline.
how to do it. Your body, you just pick the anchor point, and the body knows how to get into that state better than you could consciously because you've practiced it so many times. Oh, that's so cool. I see this as like the most exciting, exhilarating thing to do with consciousness in life. And I love playing with it. And as a thought that's coming to mind too, I love people who are not playing with it. I had like a deep realization the other day. Every human is playing their own game. There's an infinite palette of games to play here. And the game I'm excited to play is this idea of ascension, realizing I am the creator of my own reality. And I gather we vibe on that too. And many of our friends and family do too. But being perfectly okay with recognizing like we're at a toy chest or like a game chest, and there's a billion infinite games people can pick from, and sitting there with other people and being like, hey, I'm picking this game, do you want to play with me? And they'll be like, nope, I'm playing this game. And being like, cool, man, like rock on with your game of whatever it is. I was at a party the other night, and me and a friend were getting really like deep and excited about the nature of reality. And one other friend comes by and he's like, hey, what are you guys talking about? We're like, we are going deep into the nature of reality. He goes, oh, no thanks. And he turns around and walks away. And in that moment, I'm getting shivers now too, because I was like, dude, that is the coolest thing ever. You like recognize what's not your vibe and what's not the game you're playing, and then just refocus and go after whatever your excitement was.
I love
and
it.
I found huge power, like paradoxically in that. You'd think you'd be like, oh, you're not supporting me. And an appreciation for myself and recognizing how much I've shifted that perspective. I used to need affirmation from the outside that what I was focusing on was like right or true or correct. But in the realization, everything's right and true and correct, and we're all just picking our focus for the game we want to play. It's so cool to like embody that state of allowance and be like, awesome, not only awesome, dude, but wow, I'm actually gonna borrow that vibration of knowing the game I'm playing. And when people are playing a game I don't want to play, be like, oh, cool, no thanks. And like, in a friendly, not interested manner, just see my way out.
That was the one thing I was going to comment on, is to honor your friend for not being a people pleaser, for like staying true to himself. Like, no thanks, that's like not where I want to be right now. Like, I love that. And I do that, you know, when I see people do that, I'm like, way to honor yourself, like way to stay true to yourself and not be a people pleaser, because everything's not for everyone.
Yes.
At every moment. Like, we get to choose, and I love that.
Yeah. There's another teacher who I love named Francis Lucille. He has some YouTube videos too, and I went to one of his retreats, and the line that sticks out most to me, we were all sitting around the table just at lunch, and someone asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you from your perspective, when you host these retreats, what are you like intending or doing? And I loved his response. He goes, I see myself as a bird sitting on a wire singing my song. He's like, I'm just singing my song, and it seems like you guys are interested in hearing the song I'm singing, but it's not really relevant to me. I'm paraphrasing him definitely. But he's like, I'm just singing my song, and like what the world does with it is of no concern to me. It's like my truth and my heart, and it's coming through me. And it's awesome you guys seem interested in sitting around and hearing my song, but it's of no relevancy. And he was like speaking, I could feel the truth in his words, and it was exciting and cool in that same vein. He knows the game he's playing, I know the game I'm playing, and we play it.
Yeah, and whoever wants to play, come on, let's do it. And if you don't, that's totally cool. I'd much rather have people that want to play the same game than people that are pretending and try, you feel it.
Yeah.
You feel it.
Yeah. And in the visualization game, I'd love to do more. Well, not only through 68-second scripts, maybe with you. One, if I'm honest with myself, one fear that comes to mind is like judgment from outside in saying like, who is this guy to be a millionaire, billionaire, have everything he wants, do everything he wants? And a core idea that I'd love to bring up now is the idea of shortage consciousness, or the idea that reality is finite and that, say, money, relationships, love are finite pies that have to be divided among the number of people, as opposed to the idea that reality is infinite and it can grow infinitely to match everyone's created reality. And I love Abraham's idea about the economy, where she says, you guys aren't trucking in resources or people from other planets, yet your economy continues to grow. Whatever the GDP is of every country, or however you metric economy, it does continue to grow. Sure, sometimes it shrinks or whatever, but if you look at the last 100 years, I'm sure every economic person would say the economy has grown. How has it grown? There's still a finite amount of resources, and the answer is consciousness. More people realized I could be wealthy, and it generated more wealth. So I love that idea, because I recognize in myself whenever I want to judge people for saying, how dare you have more than me? It's based, the anger is showing it's based on a false premise, the idea of shortage consciousness. I shouldn't say a false premise. All truths are true. You can embrace the idea of shortage consciousness and experience it. I choose to embrace the idea of unlimited consciousness and then experience the idea that everyone can have as much as they want of everything. And by embodying wealth, health, happiness, positive relationships, I'm not taking more than my fair share of the pie. I'm actually making the pie bigger than it was previously.
And then supporting humanity, because you're raising collective consciousness levels.
Yes.
So it's really interesting, because I've done a lot of coaching of people that want to do speaking, and they often will have this, who am I? Who am I to be on stage? Who am I that people will want to listen to me? And there is a lot to taking up space, like with your body, with your voice, with you're claiming a right to the resources that you want. And the big thing is, if the desire is within you, so is the ability to achieve it. And it's meant for you. Like if you have the desire, it is meant for you, whatever it is, whether it's wealth or love or relationships or a career, whatever it is. And one thing is like, most people have a fear of being judged. And here's my take on it. You want to know what it is?
I'd love.
This is a hard truth. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
People are going to judge you. No matter what you do or what you don't do, people are going to judge you. So why not do whatever the fuck you want? They're going to judge you anyway.
That's fucking awesome. I love that. I love that.
And I heard something this woman named Jasmine Starr said, would you rather disappoint others or yourself?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, who do you go home to? Who are you always with? Like you can't live your life not trying to disappoint others, because you can't please everyone. And when you do that, you're leaving behind the most important person in the equation.
Someone who's so important to me loves that line. I'm sorry, I have to disappoint you before I disappoint myself. And you can like feel the truth in that. Ah, yes. That's so beautiful.
And a lot of times we're trying to protect other people and not disappoint them, and they don't even care.
It's true.
Or you're disappointing yourself, which brings the whole vibration down, and then they feel disappointed anyway. So be true to yourself, like live.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
And a tie-in idea, going back a few sentences to what you were saying, but desire, like who am I to stand on stage? Bashar gives such a phenomenal idea to select and choose as a truth, and that is, if you have a desire within you for something, Source created that desire because Source also created someone else's desire that like is the counterpart to that coin. So I desire to speak my truth because Source created an excitement in someone else to hear that truth. Or I'm excited to create a painting because Source created someone who's excited to experience that painting and get a new idea from it. Like we're all building a structure together. And when you deny your expression of a desire, you're not only denying yourself, you're denying the other person who's Source inspired to consume that. And then it probably plays on from there. If you consider like we're like a lattice work, by someone else consuming what I'm putting out, then they're inspired to put something else out, which maybe me or someone else is then inspired to consume. We're all like feeding each other, and we can all feed each other trash, or we can all feed each other truth. And paradoxically, the feeding of truth is what builds the beautiful structure, the beautiful snowflake.
Love that. Yes, that's amazing. And that's the thing. It's like we're all playing a role for one another. We're all characters in one another's stories, and we don't know how it all fits. And then what if one person doesn't show up, calls in sick? You know, like they got to find a substitute, and they might be not off book. But it reminds me of a story. I had this idea to create a local Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation group. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to do it. And so I started reaching out to people, and I reached out to a guy who started reaching out to people, and together the two of us formed this local group. Do you know how many people said, oh, I manifested this. This is my manifestation. Like I was dreaming of a local group. And I'm like, so it's exactly what you said. Like I took that spark. I'm like, it would be nice to have a local group. I'm like, well, why don't I create one? I'm like, okay. So I got the desire within me to create it. I didn't know how, but I wasn't concerned with the how because it's none of my business. But so many other people are like, we're manifesting it. But it takes somebody to do the legwork. Somebody's got to take some action. You can't just sit around and manifest all day long. You can, but it's faster if you just do some work yourself.
Karen, I love that. And I want to tell you right now, as a member of that group, I also was under the impression that I manifested it, because one of my intentions every morning in meditation is to be surrounded with the most beautiful people who inspire and uplift me and choose to play the same game of expanding consciousness into an unlimited realm that we haven't been before. And that group is exactly that avenue for me. And when we meditate together, I think, how lucky am I to be a part of this group? So thank you for acting on your desire, as I am the happy consumer of that. And the conversations we have through that group, like last night, just uplift me even more, because it's so cool for my beliefs to be normalized within a community where it's normal to recognize I'm not a victim of reality, I'm a creator of it. Not to say being a victim is to be invalidated. It's perfectly valid to experience being a victim. I choose to be a creator, and it's so exciting to constantly be surrounded by people who speak from that perspective. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And you take action. Like John and his wife schedule meditations all the time. So you're taking action. Like, yes, you're in there, and you're creating space and time for us to meet.
Well, this is cool. We're like, now I like see, we're literally like building the structure. Yeah. And like, I love that perspective that we're all in it together. And that's another perspective on shortage consciousness I choose. It's easy to fall into the trap, the idea that even if I expand the pie and bring more to myself in that expansion, I'm still like shorting other people. And I choose the perspective that we're all in it together. And by expanding the pie, by expanding my own abundance and my own health, I'm actually creating more for other people to partake in. It's interesting to see in belief systems, there's like beliefs within beliefs within beliefs. And sometimes I'll hop to one belief I prefer and then see there's like other beliefs, like a chemical molecule structure. Like there's like a hydrogen atom stuck on the side. And I'm like, wait a minute, like I don't want that stuck on. I want like an oxygen atom, which says like it's for everyone's benefit. And I realized the idea of the perspective of like a human separate self can sometimes trigger a survival mindset and being like, I need to get money by taking it from other people. And that's when I know I'm like off course or like earning it from other people. I need other people to validate me to give it. And then I'm like, you're off course. You're like acting as a human who thinks there's a limited pie and like we're all separate entities trying to get it, versus sitting in the higher self and be like, wait a minute, we're unlimited consciousness. We can all expand and have unlimited. So it's fun to look at those like stuck on beliefs. And I recognize as in all my heart and soul, we're all in this together. If I ever like have the thought I need to step on someone else or like run faster than someone else to like get that seat, I saw it coming up in a Dr. Joe week long. I was like, I got to be to the front of the line to like run to the front seat because I want to be close. And then I'm like, dude, we're like here now. I'm giving energy to the idea that there's like limited seats and other people competing for those seats. And I'm like, this is a perfect example to like sit back in the seat of awareness, go to that neutral state, that thoughtless state, and place the intention. There's plenty for all. Everything's working out perfectly. Like I never want to get something because I like outran someone else. I want us all to like build the structure back and forth together.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it so much. The other thing like with wealth consciousness is the fact of, do I trust myself with an expanded, an unlimited amount of resources? Do I trust myself to do good things with them? Do I? Which a lot of people don't. So it's just an interesting question that I pose.
I love that idea of trust. Yes. Trust yourself, trust reality. Or maybe even, I was listening, I forget who, some teacher was talking about going beyond trust to knowing. If you trust long enough in the idea that I'm a piece of source, you're a piece of source, the whole world is a piece of source, we're all source. If you trust it long enough, it becomes a knowing. And once I know I'm source and everyone's source and everything's love, it like evaporates so many fearful beliefs, right? Just complete, whatever I do is my best and that's perfect. Whatever everyone else is doing is their best and that's perfect. You like hit this blissful, like, I don't want to call it a dead end point because it's probably not. It's really like a truth point. It might actually be sitting in the seat of consciousness, like as the one, as source. I'm everything, everything's me. There's no need to like try and force or do or anything. Everything is just perfect. There's like infinite perspectives you can go up to until I guess you hit the one. And then Bashar talks about that, to have some experience, the one like split itself. But when you sit as the one, there's really no experience to be had because you're choosing a perspective. I'm one is all. Like the duality is necessary for any type of experience to transpire.
That's fascinating. It sounds like the dissolution of all illusion. And it's just like this state of complete knowing and allowance, like we've talked about before, and love and bliss.
Yeah.
And what else is there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've hit it. I just haven't stayed there consistently.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, let's anchor that in when I hit it again, and let's stay there more often.
Yeah. Ooh,
until it becomes like the main vibration that I'm putting out, that I'm being.
Yes. Actually, I want to drill into this a little more. Can I drill into this a little more?
Yeah.
I used to think, and actually I'm very curious for your perspective too, and I'm not sure I've reached a conclusive decision on it yet, but I used to think the ideal state was the one state, was sitting from a perspective that I recognize the one is all and all is one. Then in meditations, I kind of gained a greater understanding. That's a valid perspective, but if you want to have any type of experience emotionally or in physical reality, you have to like split yourself and recognize the continuum that everything exists on and then choose. Like if I want an experience of blissful love, I have to recognize there's a continuum of hate and love as polar opposites, and then choose the love in thought, word, and action. for it to be like any experience. But if I don't like split to create the duality and then intentionally choose in the duality, there like essentially is no experience to be had.
Yeah.
Do you have like a perspective on
Well,
that?
I do. And I think in order to really, truly appreciate and enjoy any of those higher level states, we must experience a contrast. It's like having a cold and being like in bed in the dark for 3 days, and then all of a sudden you feel better and you go outside and the sun's shining and you're like, oh my gosh, life is beautiful. Whereas we live in Arizona, it's sunny almost every day. We could go outside and never see the sun. We wouldn't even notice it because it's our normal. But if we're stuck inside and under the covers for 3 days, we're like, oh, it's so beautiful. We get to live here. So I think it's like that. It's like we must experience a contrast in order to appreciate anything, or otherwise it's just our new normal.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And do you see the power, or I'll say I see the power as intentionally choosing. I used to think by like sitting in the state of the one, the choice would be made for me. Maybe to some degree it is because I'm sitting as the one, but when I want to play a game of human inexperience and like touch, feel, see things occurring and see things as love, I like have to intentionally choose. And now I recognize the decision as free will. And it's not, action is part of the decision, but really the chosen thought perspective on it is the bigger chunk of the free will. And then the word and action in physical reality follows the thought intention that I'm gonna see this, I'm choosing to see this, knowing the continuum exists.
Yeah, there's so much in there.
So much.
Like the free will part, it's really fascinating. If you ask anybody who is thinking they're a victim right now, and you ask them about free will, they'd be like, I didn't choose this, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, well, okay, all truths are true, right?
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. Like, if you could choose a different way to look at it, what would you choose? You know, or if there were 5 people that saw the same situation or experienced the same thing, what would they tell me? Or, you know what I mean? It's just like starting to play with other possibilities of other, like bringing in other perspectives, I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, I just had the coolest moment when you were talking about a victim perspective and saying, I didn't choose this. I can see myself before I like woke up, and I don't mean that as like a lesser than, greater than, before I was introduced to the idea that I'm creating my own reality, and realizing in what we were talking about right there with choice, seeing the continuum and then intentionally choosing, the victim perspective might be simply the realization that I can choose and I do intentionally choose. Like, not saying I didn't choose this means I didn't choose anything and I'm just like letting the default reality play out. And if I think reality is real and I focus on what's occurring, according to every spiritual teacher ever and our beginning conversation, whatever you focus on expands. So as Abraham says, you just regurgitate the same reality over and over again. People stay pretty much the same. People don't really, a few people get wealthier, a few people get healthier, but for the most part, people don't change. Like, that's just the idea of regurgitating what I've seen before because I'm not choosing. I didn't choose it. I don't realize I'm choosing, but I see now like the power is in the choice of the perspective, but the real power is in the seat of realizing I have the choice and I have to make the choice. I don't know if I'm articulating it well, but I like really saw that idea of I didn't choose this. You're right. You didn't choose this because you didn't realize you could choose, and which is a valid game too. But the true excitement, and I like feel the energy and the excitement in me in the truth of this statement. I can choose the perspective that I choose, which sounds paradoxical, but I'm
it's
juiced.
So good. And you get to choose in any moment, do you want to be a victim or do you want to be a creator? In any moment, you can be a victim, of course. And in the next moment, you could say, you know what? I'm going to choose something else. I'm going to create what I want. And it's a matter of knowing what you prefer. Like, what do you want instead? And I've talked to so many people that have no freaking idea what they want. They are afraid to dream. And we're not going to get into that today, but freaking dream. Yeah. So what? Like, don't be afraid of it and speak it. Speak it out loud. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your ass on the line. Like, I've done it so many times. Like, okay, this is what I'm creating. I don't know how, but this is it. And you guys are all my witness that I said I'm creating it. So yeah, I think it's so important to really know what you want. And Dr. Jost talks about that too. It's like, if you don't intentionally create what you want to experience, life can happen to you. Yeah. And it's your choice in that moment to say, I don't like that. I'm going to choose something else for now and for tomorrow and for the next day.
Yeah. Oh, and now as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, Abraham always says contrast is your greatest teacher. Contrast is the gift, because know what you don't want, know what you do want. So I've sat with that idea sometimes too, where I'm like, oh, I don't know what I want to create. Then I'm seeing right now, as you live your day, you get a million examples of, well, I don't like being cut off in traffic. If you cannot fall into the 17-second expanded to 68-second focus of what I don't want, and then create momentum, a runaway train in the direction of you don't want, if you can pivot in those first 17 seconds, if you think you don't know what you want right now, just get out in the world for one day in a mindful state. Catch yourself every time you go, well, I don't want that. Someone's rude to me. Someone cut me off. I don't have enough money to buy this. If you can catch yourself in those 17 seconds, you'll know all day exactly what you want, and you can pivot. And it's just a matter of maintaining that seat of awareness to be like, this isn't objectively true. This is beautiful contrast. Thank you for showing me what I don't prefer. Now I can answer the question. I know exactly what I want. I love when the roads have less traffic. I love when people are nice to me. I love when people appreciate me. I love when I have tons of money, and just really believe I'm the creator. No, I'm the creator, and choose it right then.
All right, I got to point out what you just said, because a lot of people might not catch it. But when he was talking about what he does want instead, you'll notice he didn't use any negative words like, I don't want this. Or I want people to not cut me off. He did not say that, because the subconscious mind and the universe do not hear the negative words like not and don't and can't. So he said, I love when the roads are free and clear and open, and I love when people are nice to me, and I love when people buy me things. And so whatever you do want, it can be the opposite of what you don't want. It's important, I think, to start there for some people.
Sure.
Because most people know what they don't like. You ask them what they do like, they're like, I don't know. A lot of people, not everyone. Not you listening and watching. We know you're advanced. But then when you think about, well, okay, what's the opposite of that? And how do you state it in the present tense? And whenever you want something, that means you're separate from it. I'm really big on language. So you could say, thank you that I experience open, free roads and nice people and loving people and generosity from strangers. Thank you for that. Because when you want, that implies that you're separate from it.
Yes.
Or that you're lacking something, and you're lacking nothing.
Beautiful. Oh, I'm so locked in right now. And I'm seeing full circle too. I love, we might have talked about it before, Abraham's concept of the emotional guidance system. The way you know your truth is the emotions. You might not have fully recognized it, but when you feel the sting of a negative emotion, it's basically your true self indicating what you prefer within yourself. It's easy to let the emotion carry you away, but if you can take the hit of ooh, that hurt, thank you. I thank you for pointing out exactly what I don't like. It turns out I don't like being cut off. Why? Who cares? My emotions and true self is saying I don't prefer this. So it's like the emotions are the gift and the indicator, everything builds. I see the model we've built. The emotion gives the hit, which you don't prefer, redirect, and as you're saying, redirect in the positive thing. It kind of goes back to that 20% fuel. You're burning a lot of your focus. If you're I hate being cut off in traffic, so I want people to stop cutting me off in traffic, you're burning more and more of your fuel actually going towards what you don't prefer before you finally realize, oh wait, shit, I got to spin it around and go back and frame it in, because there's no such thing as no, right? There's no such, you just have a gas pedal. You don't have a brake when you're driving in reality. Yes. Whatever you're looking at, you're hitting the gas towards. There's no break. There's no stop or run away from.
Yes, and emotions are the easiest self-coaching tool you'll ever experience. When you feel an emotion that feels contracting, or what's the opposite of expansive? When you're in contraction or you feel tense, it doesn't feel good. you'll know that it's your soul saying, stop, stop. It's like your hand's getting close to the fire and it's like, stop, don't go there, don't go there. And if you lean in, it's like you said, like the emotions can produce thoughts that correspond, and then you're in that loop.
Yeah.
You're producing chemicals that are going to produce more thoughts and more emotions, and you're going to be in that cycle. Whereas if you notice it quickly, and your body will tell you, start paying attention to your body, because it is brilliant. It is a brilliant lie detector test, and it will tell you, like, get away from the fire, get back into your higher truth. And when you feel expansive and you feel open and light and happy and joyful and peaceful, follow that thread, see what happens.
I love that.
It'll be fun.
It's really hammering home for me the idea of catching it early, and the idea, the 17 seconds or 68 seconds is cool just to have like some idea of how fast it needs to be caught. The idea of momentum is so powerful, and I realize if you embrace the negative emotion for more than 68 seconds, you've like started a momentum, and there may come a point where you can't stop the momentum in the immediate future. You have to kind of let it play out, and that's where like sitting as neutral dissipates the energy, but not beating yourself up. Because I catch myself, I'll be like, oh shit, I must have been here for more than 68 seconds because I feel this momentum going, and I'll try and pivot, and it actually like energizes the anger more. And then I'm like, I can't pivot. And I'm like, okay, it's cool to be able to be like, all right, I started a momentum. It must have been more than 68 seconds. I'm not gonna be able to steer the wheel right now. I'm gonna like meditate, sit in neutral, go pick up a puppy, pick up a puppy in my mind. Like, I'm not gonna try and pivot this. But when you catch it early, those days where I'm locked in and catching stuff early feel like so expansive and exciting.
Yes, it is so cool. And develop a low tolerance for what I call the shitty diaper. Now, so I love this analogy of the shitty diaper. Like, we've all had those moments where like we're sitting in this shitty diaper and we're like, I'm not changing it. I don't care. We're like dug in. We're right about our anger, our disappointment, our victim story. We're right about it. We're sitting in it. And we have a right to do that. And we can do it for as long as we want to. And if we sit there long enough, there are going to be some consequences. Number one, you're going to get diaper rash. Number two, it's going to stink, and anybody who comes near you is going to smell you and run. If you sit there long enough, when you stand up, it's going to fall off and fling shit everywhere on everyone. So you can sit in it. You do have a right. Or you can say, oh, geez, I just shit myself. I'm going to get up and change it. So changing your posture even, like, I know it's gross, but you're going to remember the shitty diaper. Changing your physiology, I think, is so important in pivoting, because, I don't know, emotions, energy in motion, they get stuck if you don't move. So if you're in one of those cycles, get up, go for a walk outside, do the skipping, do something. I think moving your body is really, really key. For me, it is, to changing my physiology quickly. I can do it in meditation, just takes a hell of a lot longer. Whereas if I just run across my house, my dog will chase me and I'm giggling in no time.
Yeah. First of all, that's probably the best analogy I've ever heard. It works on absolutely every level. Like, people like start getting further and further away from you. As reflective, the mirror is reflecting the vibe. Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I love that idea of doing something physical. For a while, I was playing with, like, when I recognize I'm locked in the state, just like doing some push-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Just like wherever I am, pretty much you can like find open space. Maybe if you're like at a store or something, you're like, well, I'll go outside around the corner or something. But like, yeah, doing some push-ups and like, it's productive. It's like building. And even if I'm like, I don't want to do it, then I know I definitely have to do it.
Yes.
Or I'll do something stupid. Like, I got into bush hopping for a while. I'd be like, whoa, I'm in a state.
What does that mean?
Phoenix seems to be loaded with lots of little bushes. Although maybe there's other interpretations we can get into.
Oh.
And I would look for like what I think is the biggest bush that I could legitimately jump over. And yeah, that would be good for refocusing.
Did you ever split your pants?
Not yet.
Oh, I want to be there for that. Oh, that's so funny.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you got a lot out of this episode. It was sure fun for me, John.
It was excellent, and I really love our colors on this one. I don't think we spent enough time appreciating how bright we are today.
No, I came in with this pink, and we said, let's create a highlight reel. That will
Yes.
both be colors of highlighters.
I changed into this shirt just so we could
So
be...
so we could match. If you
Yes.
are listening and not having access to the visual, I'm wearing hot pink, and John is wearing
bright blaze. I think it's called technically blaze orange. I bought this.
fluorescent orange.
I bought it from Orvis. I think it's designed to be worn while hunting. It's that like orange hunting color to make sure hunters don't shoot other hunters. And thank you for pointing out that we are on Apple Podcasts too.
Yes.
So I guess there's no visual with that. I love that we're like figuring this out as we go.
It's amazing.
You're amazing to stay aware of that because I totally forgot.
We got to take care of both audiences.
Absolutely.
Because we have 50 million in our audience.
The last time I checked, it
gosh.
was 60 million. Karen, that was fucking awesome. Totes. Yes.
All
I can
right.
feel
We'll
that.
see you next time.
Love you guys. Take care.
Mwah.